Honestly, Cora, we need to talk about your shade palette. It's lovely, darling, but it's just so neutral for a wedding of this caliber. You'd wash out the entire bridal party. My sister, Serena, leaned in, her voice a condescending whisper meant to carry across the meticulously set tables of the rehearsal dinner. She adjusted the massive, glittering engagement ring on her finger, a ring Thomas. Her investment banker fiancé had bought with money Serena claimed was real, grown-up success. I stood frozen in the opulent ballroom, surrounded by 90 of Seattle's wealthiest, most perfectly manicured individuals. The laughter that followed, led by my mother Eleanor, was sharp and dismissive. They didn't even try to hide the cruelty. I felt the familiar burn of public humiliation. I was the family liability, the 31-year-old artist who chose creativity over commerce, the one who was too simple, too plain, to stand next to Serena's dazzling perfection on her wedding day. My name is Cora Hayes. I'm 31, and for the last 8 years I've worked tirelessly as a freelance couturier and conceptual fashion designer, while my sister, Serena, 34, pursued a career in pharmaceutical sales, a field my parents could proudly brag about. I chased a dream they dismissed as a hobby, haute couture. In my family's eyes, a person's worth was measured by their W-2 and their proximity to old money. Serena married the right man, bought the right house, and was having the right wedding. I, who lived in a loft with exposed brick and made my living with a needle and thread, was a permanent, slightly embarrassing afterthought. The dynamic had been set since childhood. Serena was beautiful, loud, and demanding. I was quiet, observant, and happiest when creating. Our parents, Eleanor and George, consistently reinforced this hierarchy. Serena was the golden child. I was the dependable shadow. When I decided to turn down a predictable corporate job to pursue fashion design, my mother's reaction was legendary. A starving artist? We raised you for better than that. Cora, at least your sister knows what success looks like. A proper man and a proper portfolio. Serena's wedding, a 4-day destination extravaganza in the San Juan Islands, was supposed to be the ultimate celebration of the family's triumphant success. Every detail was curated for maximum social impact, from the exclusive venue to the guest list, which included Thomas's highly influential family. The humiliation peaked 3 months prior when Serena made the final cut on her bridal party. She'd lined us up in her sprawling walk-in closet, assessing us like pieces of furniture. "Look, Cora," she'd said, holding up a shimmering sample swatch for the bridesmaids' dresses. "I love you, but let's be real. This wedding is going to be in vogue. The visual aesthetic is everything. I need a certain level of impact next to me. You're too subtle. Your coloring, your whole vibe, it's too plain. You'd pull focus in the wrong way." She relegated me to the role of logistics coordinator for the weekend, a glorified runner. I swallowed the familiar knot of pain, accepting the dismissal with practiced neutrality. What Serena, my family, and every single person in that lavish rehearsal dinner ballroom didn't know was the catastrophic secret I carried. I was the architect behind the entire wedding's aesthetic. 3 years ago, struggling to launch my luxury brand, Alethea, I entered an anonymous international design competition held by a secretive, ultra-high-end fashion collective in Milan, the same one that designed the gowns for European royalty. I won, securing a quiet, highly profitable contract to create bespoke, conceptual designs for the collective's most exclusive private clients under the anonymous pseudonym, The Architect. 6 months ago, Serena, obsessed with having a truly unique, high-fashion dress, contacted the Milan collective through Thomas's wealthy contacts. She demanded a design from the architect that would be guaranteed to generate buzz. The collective, bound by contract, forwarded the commission to me. The irony was suffocating. My sister, who rejected me for being too plain, was unknowingly demanding a design from the starving artist she ignored. I accepted the commission. It was too large and too professionally challenging to refuse, but mostly, it was the perfect bitter opportunity for justice. I spent 3 months creating a gown that was, quite literally, the most intricate, breathtaking piece of art I had ever conceived. A masterpiece of hand-stitched French lace, silk organza layered to mimic seafoam, and pearl detailing that took 4,000 hours to complete. It was a dress that cost Thomas a cool $450,000. Now, standing in the opulent ballroom, listening to Serena mock my neutral shade palette, I tightened my grip on the glass of sparkling water I held. The true twist was about to unfold. The rehearsal dinner toasts began. Serena's mother-in-law, a woman who treated Serena only marginally better than she treated me, raised her glass. To the beautiful bride, who has created an event that is simply heavenly. Serena beamed, soaking up the praise, occasionally shooting me a patronizing glance. "All thanks to my incredible vision," she whispered to a friend. The final moment of the evening arrived, the traditional unveiling of the gown before the immediate family. Serena had insisted on this, craving the gasp of collective awe. My parents, Thomas's family, and the bridal party gathered around a massive, specially constructed velvet mannequin positioned in the center of the room. Serena, flushed with arrogant excitement, drew the velvet cord. The collective gasp was louder, more profound than I could have imagined. The dress was magnificent, an architectural wonder that seemed to capture and diffuse the light of the ballroom. "It's Alethea," Serena declared, naming her favorite fragrance, not the designer. My architect outdid herself. "No one has ever seen anything this exquisite." "It's certainly extravagant," Eleanor murmured, trying to sound complimentary while clearly calculating the cost. Then Thomas's younger sister, Clara, who was notoriously jealous of Serena, piped up. "Serena, how is it possible the designer got every single one of your measurements and style demands so perfect without ever meeting you? I mean, this lace detail is exactly what you described to me months ago. It's almost telepathic." Serena, flustered by the technical question, waved it off. "That's why he's called the architect, darling. Pure genius. He works remotely through an intermediary." This was my moment. The time had come for the unveiling of the true identity of the artist. I walked calmly past the tables and stood directly facing the massive lace-draped mannequin. Every eye in the room followed me. "He?" I asked, my voice calm, almost conversational. Serena frowned, irritated by the interruption. "Yes, he, the architect, Cora. Now, if you're quite done being distracting, I need to take photos." I reached into my simple velvet clutch and pulled out a small, metallic silver card. It was engraved with my logo, the Alethea signature, and the word "the architect" underneath, centered. "The architect works anonymously, Serena," I said, looking straight into her eyes. "But he doesn't work without a contract and a signature." I held up the card and placed it delicately on the silk-draped podium next to the dress. Then, I turned my attention to the French lace adorning the bodice. My fingers traced the intricate, custom-patterned lacework, a signature detail I had conceived years ago. "And yes," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "the lace detail is exactly what you described to Clara months ago. It's a very specific weave I call the haze weave. It's based on a concept I developed during my thesis at FIT, a conceptual self-portrait in thread." I looked at Serena, whose jaw had gone slack with dawning catastrophic comprehension. "I know the measurements are perfect," I finished, my voice ringing with finality. "Because I took them. I know the demands were met, because I was the one who fulfilled them. I know the budget was $450,000, because I received the wire. And I know I was too plain to be a bridesmaid, because that was a design choice I made, to avoid distracting from the gown my sister paid me $500,000 to create." The gasp that ripped through the ballroom was physical. It was loud and absolute. Thomas's father dropped his wine glass, the crystal shattering on the marble floor, but nobody noticed. Eleanor's perfect smile dissolved into a mask of pure horror. Serena, the radiant, triumphant bride, looked like she had just realized she was standing naked in Times Square. You designed the dress?" Serena stammered, the words barely audible. "I am the architect, Serena," I confirmed, feeling a cathartic release that shook me to my core. "And now every time a publication mentions your exquisite, one-of-a-kind $450,000 gown, an entire celebrating the talent of the sister you deemed My
too
mother, plain to Eleanor,
stand
rushed
next
toward
to you.
me, not with an apology.
The silence
but with
that
panic.
followed was the sound
"Cora,
of,
you can't tell anyone. This will ruin us. It's all over the contract that the architect remains anonymous. Think of Thomas's family." "Don't worry, Mother," I said, cutting her off effortlessly. "I am bound by my contract to maintain anonymity. But you know what else is in that contract? A very specific clause concerning verbal disparagement." I pulled out a second, thicker envelope. As the head of Alethea and the commissioned designer, I included a penalty clause, I explained, holding the document high enough for everyone to see the letterhead. Any public or written statement intended to damage the reputation of the designer or their studio during the commission period nullifies the anonymity clause and triggers an immediate, unappealable fine. Your comments tonight, Serena's comments in the closet, Julian's texts, all easily documented instances of disparagement. And given the size of this commission, the penalty is substantial. The fine is $2.5 million payable within 48 hours, or the collective will seize the final essential element of your dress. Serena shrieked. Seize what? You can't! The dress is exquisite, I said, my voice regaining its soft, precise tone. But the entire garment is stabilized by a bespoke titanium mesh corset I custom designed. Without it, the dress collapses. The design is proprietary. The corset is currently on a truck outside, waiting for the final fitting tomorrow morning. If the $2.5 million is not wired by 9 a.m., the corset does not arrive, and your $500,000 masterpiece becomes a very expensive puddle of lace on the floor. Serena looked down at the ethereal fabric, then at her fiancé, Thomas, whose face was a study in pure financial terror. The wedding dress was not just a dress. It was the symbol of their entire strategic, high-status union. And now, the Plain sister held it all hostage. I placed the penalty invoice on the podium, next to my card. The architect, I said, nodding to my shocked family, is now done with logistics. I walked toward the exit, ignoring my mother's pleading, Thomas's stunned silence, and Serena's hysterical sobs. As I reached the door, I paused and looked back at the wreckage. The last sight I had was Serena desperately grabbing the lace, trying to figure out how to save the masterpiece designed by the sister she rejected, while Thomas frantically pulled out his phone, trying to wire $2.5 million before his whole perfect wedding dissolved. I walked out into the cool evening air, feeling a profound sense of catharsis. I used to think I needed their praise to be worthy. Turns out, I just needed to stop being Serena's shadow and start charging the full professional fee for my time. The price of perfection. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and beautiful over the San Juan Islands, a perfect backdrop for a catastrophic emotional and financial implosion. I was safely back in my loft in Seattle, receiving real-time updates from my legal team. The $2.5 million wire transfer had arrived at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the deadline. Thomas had liquidated nearly all of his personal investment portfolio to cover the fine, a devastating financial hit just hours before his wedding. My mother, Eleanor, had spent the entire night alternating between calling my lawyer to contest the fine and calling me to beg me to return the money. I did not return the money, nor did I answer my mother's calls. The titanium corset, crucial for the dress's structure and fit, was delivered precisely at 9 a.m. Serena would wear the dress, but she would do so, knowing its cost went far beyond the initial price tag. My phone rang just after the corset was delivered. It was Julian, my perpetually smug brother, his voice cracking with fear and exhaustion. Cora, please. Thomas is having a breakdown. Eleanor is confined to her room. Serena can't stop crying. You've won. Please, just tell everyone the fine was a misunderstanding. Protect the family. Protect the family? I repeated, making a note of his confession. Julian, I'm not asking anyone to protect me, and I certainly don't need your protection. I am protecting my work, my reputation, and my business. That is the definition of professional success. But the dress, the wedding, he pleaded. It's the most important day of Serena's life. No, Julian, I corrected softly. It was the most expensive day of Thomas's life. Tell Serena that if she wants the dress to fit for the ceremony, she needs to stop crying and start focusing on her posture. That corset doesn't tolerate weakness. I hung up, and immediately felt a strange mix of vindication and profound sadness for the sister who had prioritized image over relationship for so long. The wedding, I learned through social media snippets and discreet reports from the venue staff, who were already calling me the architect, was a muted affair. Serena walked down the aisle in the breathtaking gown, but her smile was brittle, her eyes wide with stress. She was performing perfection, wearing a $450,000 dress designed by the sister she considered too plain, secured by a titanium corset that represented a $2.5 million penalty, all while her groom was in a panic over his depleted net worth. The professional success that followed the wedding was instantaneous and overwhelming. The Milan collective, impressed by my ruthless business acumen and the global attention the dress garnered, even with the scandal attached, offered me a permanent, non-anonymous partnership contract with guaranteed international exposure. My firm, Alethea, was suddenly the new name in high fashion, sought after by celebrities and influential figures who valued design genius more than they feared controversy. I opened a conceptual studio space in New York and hired a full team, using the $2.5 million penalty money as the foundational investment. The long-term fallout for my family was slow, agonizing, and completely self-inflicted. Serena spent the first year of her marriage obsessively trying to figure out how to destroy my anonymity clause and expose my talent as her own discovery. When she failed, she tried to claim she had mentored me, but her attempts were pathetic and easily disproved by my immediate international success. Her marriage to Thomas, built on financial strategy rather than genuine affection, suffered under the weight of Thomas's depleted portfolio. They were forced to sell the sprawling house they'd just bought and significantly downsize, all thanks to my logistics coordinator fee. Thomas was ruined by the public humiliation and the financial hit. His investment banking career never recovered from the scandal involving the $2.5 million wire transfer, which looked disastrously unprofessional. He was known forever as the man who married the woman whose sister charged him millions for the dress. My parents, Eleanor and George, were the most shattered. Their entire self-worth was wrapped up in the image of their perfect, successful family. Their friends and social circles, who witnessed the complete unraveling of their facade, distanced themselves. The constant reminders in the media of the plain daughter's meteoric rise and the golden daughter's financial scandal were unbearable. They never apologized for the years of emotional neglect, only for the consequences of their cruelty. They attempted several times to visit my New York studio, bearing gifts and carefully constructed compliments, but I politely and firmly refused to see them. 2 years after the wedding, I stood on a podium in Paris, accepting an International Design Award for the Hayes weave, the same lace pattern Serena had claimed was so exquisite. The design collective formally announced me as their non-anonymous partner, Cora Hayes, the architect. During my acceptance speech, I paused, looking out at the glittering crowd. I spoke about the power of creativity, the necessity of charging your worth, and the importance of resilience. I spoke about the initial humiliation that drove me to pursue my art with singular focus. I ended with the closing moral I had decided on years ago in Serena's walk-in closet. I used to think that the greatest challenge in design was creating something universally beautiful. I was wrong. The greatest challenge is convincing others, and sometimes yourself, that you are worthy of that beauty. My sister taught me a difficult lesson. Never let someone else define your shade palette. And always charge a non-negotiable fee for the privilege of your genius. The applause was overwhelming. I had achieved everything they said I was too plain to reach. I was an international success, financially independent, and respected for my art. My sister wore my masterpiece, but I owned the future. The only thing they had ever given me was the desperation to prove them wrong, and for that, I had charged them $2.5 million. It was the best investment I ever made.